Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So unfortunately, I've not been able to get out this week to take any photos for two main reasons. Firstly, unfortunately, I came down with a bit of a cold and a cough, which is taking a very long time for it to clear up, which is frustrating within itself. But what's even more frustrating, particularly not being able to get out and take any photos, is that I've actually got myself a new camera. I'll hopefully be going into a bit more details about why I've actually purchased a new camera and the reasons behind that, and the actual explanation about the camera. So I'll sort of hold on that one for the moment. But when you've obviously got a new toy, first things you want to do is play with it. And yeah, not being able to get out and about is highly frustrating when obviously you've got this new piece of gear that you really want to try out, put it through its paces, see what it can do. But yeah, unfortunately not being able to use it is highly frustrating. So what I want to do for today's vlog anyway is to talk about one of the images that I captured when I was out at Bradwell-on-Sea at St Peter's Chapel. And it was the last image that I captured of the day at the seashore, and hopefully we'll be able to go into a bit more detail about how I edited that image. However, let's just remind ourselves how I caught that image. So after my drink of coffee and a little bit of warming up, I've made it down to the shoreline now. And as some of you know, the Essex coast is not a rocky coast at all. But however, we've got mud. And mud is good enough, isn't it? So yeah, I actually made it out here, and it's actually really quite interesting. I've never actually ventured down to the shoreline when I've been here before, but I'm really pleased that I have. Because as the wind's obviously quite whipping in now, it's obviously crashing the waves against the sort of boulders of mud here, and creating sort of quite some interesting images. So again, there's quite a dynamic range between the sky that's quite bright and obviously the foreground as well. So I've taken one image for the sky that obviously you already got that in the bag, and then focusing on some of the sort of mud boulders, I'm going to call them, in the foreground, and I've got my cable release on and just taking several images, waiting for that right wave to sort of crash on and obviously then freeze the water as it's sort of splashing against the boulders there. So working out to be quite a good image. I think this is probably going to be my last one for today, so yeah, working out to be quite a good one. The settings for that one is f18, ISO 100, and obviously just taking two different exposures, one for the sky as I said, and obviously one for the foreground, and obviously blending the two together in post-processing. So working out to be quite an interesting composition. So let's jump into the computer now and just see about how I edited that image. So this is the first image that I've got here with the sky as the main focus point, and I'm exposing for the sky. And this image worked out really quite well. I've slightly adjusted the sliders on the right hand side, as you can see here. Obviously reduced the highlights slightly as I was finding it was quite burnt out in the centre. However, that is the sun, so it is going to be burnt out. So we obviously retain some of the detail though. And then you're obviously increasing the clarity, vibrancy and saturation, which is what I tend to work with a lot in most of my images. So that's the exposure that I took for the sky. I then moved on to looking at the exposure for the foreground and just working out exactly when I wanted the right sort of patterns to be created in the sea, sort of crashing against the mud boulders. So let's have a look at that image now. So this is the exposure that I took for the foreground, and again obviously adjusted the sliders on the right hand side here to obviously get the desired exposure that I wanted. Again, I like this one that I picked. I took several, but with the splash that's created on this boulder here on the left hand side of the image, worked out really quite well. So that's the one I picked for my foreground image. So open up that image and then we can get into the editing side of things. So opening up both of the images here, what I've actually been able to do is simply take one exposure, overlay it to the other, and then using layer mask has actually merged the images together. And I'm really lucky that obviously where I shoot in Essex, there's a very sort of straight horizon line, and obviously being able to blend the images together works out really quite well using this method. So simply going onto the sky exposure that I took, Control A, Control C, click back onto the foreground image, and then Control V to obviously do the layer. Coming in onto the layer mask, and then simply from that, selecting the brush tool, then I'm able to sort of paint in the areas of the image that I don't want and bringing it back to. So making sure that I've obviously got the brush tool selected, I then make sure that the opacity is right up at 100%, minimising that, expanding the brush head, and then simply making sure that the black is selected. I then will paint in the foreground image. And simply it's just sort of touching in as much as possible, trying to keep that detail there in the sky, and obviously as it is a soft brush at the sides, then I can obviously just go brush slightly on the horizon line just to keep that equal image there. And what you can actually do is just click on the backslash key here to actually then bring up the highlighted area where you've actually sort of done the brush tool, and making sure that obviously you've got the right brush head selected, or colour selected should I say, is then sort of bring that back in. However, when I was actually exposing for this, I noticed that the sort of highlighted area around where you get the obviously reflection of the sun was a little bit too highlighted. If I take that off, you can see it's a little bit blown out here. So zooming in a little bit more, what I can actually do then is bring that back, making sure that I've then got the white selected, back onto my brush, make it a little bit smaller, and then also do a little bit more detail, bringing that sort of golden light back in here. And probably that's a bit too harsh, so let's remove that, bring the opacity down a little bit, so then I've got a bit more control, make it a little bit more natural in the actual reflections here. That's looking pretty good. Let's go back to full screen. What also I don't necessarily like about this image is you've got a couple of sun flares here. And that's not, you can't really help that when you're taking an image facing directly into the sun. So again, zooming in, using the spot healing tool, and then you can solve that. There's one just here as well. So I think one is fine, but the others were sort of a bit of a distraction within the actual image as well. We've got a little bit of distortion around this part here, but making sure you've got the right layer selected, so when you do the adjustments it's not obviously affecting too much. It's a little bit, making sure you know where the undo key is. So just doing the adjustments as you go there. And that works out to be quite a good image, I feel. I think with the detail here that you've got in the left hand side of the image obviously adds into interest. So I wanted the image to be showing a little bit of movement, which I think I've captured here in the left hand side of the image, but also with the sky as well, it's worked out to be quite a good image, I feel. So it worked out to be quite a good image. I really enjoyed capturing this one as well. Finding the shoreline and seeing what the actual compositions there were on offer was actually really added bonus. And I think that sort of was portrayed within my part to camera when I was actually there doing the vlog. So yeah, hopefully next week I'll be able to get out and about and obviously take the camera out and put it onto its, or put it through its paces, should I say. But yeah, hopefully the cold will clear up as well, so it'll be a win-win situation. But thanks a lot for everyone that's subscribed recently. Please make sure you leave a comment below as well, and also give it a thumbs up, as that does help to expand the reach of the channel. But thanks a lot for watching, and take care.